Welcome everybody to Board of Directors meeting for the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City. You have your agenda in your packet. We're going to open the meeting with some words of welcome and grounding and some visioning from our board chair, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright.
Oh, mercy, I'm doing grounding and visioning.
You're doing a lot, yeah. You're going to bring us into the space in the way we need to. A very robust hour.
Yes. Well, one, I want to thank everyone for their service, our mighty team here for the Mayor's Fund, and really, I think this is your first actual official board meeting. Yay!
Congratulations.
So we are very grateful to have you on board and really leading us and grounding us and kind of making sure that we have the right vision and are kind of leaning into it. So very excited about that. Just to give people a little bit of an overview, I think everybody knows that we've been engaged in a pretty rigorous and robust strategic planning process as an administration and come up with some, just refined our priorities, certainly for the remainder of our first term. And we want to make sure that the Mayor's Fund, as well as all the other philanthropic organizations that are connected to agencies, are aligned and working in an aligned, coordinated way to achieve the goals that we've set out for ourselves. And so the Mayor's Fund itself certainly has some clear priorities in terms of how we're going to engage the philanthropic community, not just as a check or not just as dollars. Hello! But also really as a strategic partner with the city of New York in achieving our aspirations. And the Mayor's Fund will also play much more intentionally and intensely a coordinating role across all of the other funds. So I think there are 13 philanthropic institutions that are connected to different agencies. Is that right? 11?
I think there's 11.
I'm just like adding more.
Right now we're 11.
11.
Yeah.
Maybe 13 later. 11. And so how we are making sure that we are all kind of rowing in the same direction and providing technical assistance, leveraging resources, just in terms of relationships. I think one of the things in my previous life, funders would say, I get a call from the Fund for Public Schools in the morning, and the Fund for Public Health in the afternoon, and the Sanitation Fund in the evening. And so what's going on? Like, what are we doing? So we really want to have a much more aligned, coordinated vision for the Adams administration as it relates to engaging philanthropy. So I think that's what I'll say, and I'm sure I was scripted and I didn't say any of the things, but there you have it.
Thank you for that. And in future meetings, we will have more to share about the coordination of the city affiliated funds. We have been meeting and we're really excited to streamline coordination of those funds and collaborative initiatives, which a lot of things are in the percolator, so more to come on that. Okay.
Any questions or anything for me from this group?
Okay.
And welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
We're recording this and we have to upload it to YouTube just so everybody's on their best.
Okay.
I think that's what it feels like. I'm feeling like that. They're like, what is she gonna say? What is she gonna say? I'm sorry.
and
Bill is looking at me.
I don't know if this is customary, but I think it might be beneficial just to have introductions around the table. So I'll start. Marcella Tillett, Executive Director of the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City, and perhaps we go this way.
Sheena Wright, First Deputy Mayor, Chair of the Mayor's Fund.
Rafan Ahmed, Chief of Staff at the Mayor's Fund.
Jill Price, Director of Finance and Operations from the Mayor's Fund.
Dawn Pinnock, DCAS Commissioner.
Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, Commissioner for the Aging, and we have a fund currently at the Department for the Aging.
Edgar Yu, Chief of Staff at the Department for the Aging.
Megan Brown, Chief of External Relations for the First Deputy Mayor.
Bill Heinzen, Special Counsel in the Mayor's Office. Najma.
Hi, Najma Ali Sherman, Legal Counsel and Director of Programs and Policy at the Mayor's Fund.
Dominique Marquez, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Fundraising at the Mayor's Fund.
Congratulations, welcome.
Hi, I'm Brent Jensen. I'm the audit partner, and I'll be presenting your audit in a few minutes.
All right. What firm are you, Brett?
EFPR Group.
Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to move forward to the approval of the July 28, 2022 board meeting minutes. If you move to page 2 of your packet, and review the minutes from the last board meeting.
I move to approve. Oh,
Thank you.
Second?
Yes. Wonderful, the motion carries, that was fast. The minutes from the last meeting are approved and adopted. So today we have 3 resolutions for your review and vote or discussion. And our chair is gonna lead us through the first resolution, which can be found on page 4 of your packet. And if you would.
Great, sure.
Yep, this group.
So, this resolution is the election of Marcella Tillett as the fund president, to hold that office until election, appointment, and qualification of her successor. Do I have a motion to approve her to take on that role?
I so move.
And then all the second, and all in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that motion carries. The second resolution is for the appointment of Commissioner of NYC Aging, Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, as a director on the Mayor's Fund Board. Please refer to Resolution 2 on page 5 of your packet, as well as on the following page, there's a bio for Commissioner Cortez Vasquez.
And a beautiful photo.
And a very lovely photo. Look over the shoulder, very lovely photo. The second resolution reads as follows. Whereas the fund currently has 3 directors serving on its board of directors, and whereas pursuant to Section 2 of Article 3 in the fund bylaws, the fund may have between 3 and 7 directors. Now therefore be it resolved that Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, Commissioner of NYC Aging, is hereby appointed to the Mayor's Fund Board of Directors. Resolved further that this instrument be filed with the minutes of the proceedings of the fund's Board of Directors. Are there any questions?
No, we're very lucky.
Yes.
I have a motion to move this resolution.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor? Well, you all are.
Yes.
Great. So that carries. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you.
We are very excited to have you on
And I'm
board.
excited to be here.
And I just want to hold some space if you want to share anything as you kind of move into this new role as one of our board directors.
Well, I've raised funds for nonprofits for a lion's share of my life, and I'm committed to making sure that this fund for the mayor is a very lucrative fund. But what I also like that's unique about this fund, and it likens to a little bit of the first deputy mayor's former position, is that it creates an opportunity for us to leverage private dollars with public dollars so that we could really expand opportunities. But more importantly, it also lets us be innovative, where maybe government funds may restrict us more. So it is, and also gives us the opportunity to respond to immediate needs. And so that I think serving on this fund, bringing the background that I do, will be an excitement for me. But we've also had a fund, and you'll hear more about that later, at the fund for, at the New York City Department for the Aging called, that was established in 70-something, and it was established to create public-private partnerships. It deviated a bit from that. But I know the value of these kind of partnerships with city agencies, because it does enhance services. And so I am so committed to work with you on moving this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome. Okay. So for the third resolution, which is on page 7, we are actually going to not hold a vote, but introduce this for discussion. And this is related to revision of the administrative fee policy. I'm going to go ahead and read through the resolution and then open the floor for discussion, questions, comments. The third resolution is related to the revision of the fund's administrative fee policy. Again, it's on page 7. Whereas pursuant to section 3.4A of the contract between the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City, known as the corporation, and the City of New York, known as City, the fund is required to retain an amount not to exceed 8% of the program funds raised in support of its programs and initiatives, known as the retainage. Whereas section 2.3A of the contract defines program funds as funds from private sources, which means private individuals, businesses, foundations, and philanthropic institutions, and shall not include any public institutions or government bodies, agencies, or officials unless specifically approved by the deputy mayor. Whereas pursuant to the provisions of section 3.4B of the contract, the corporation may waive or reduce the retainage in specific instances of soliciting and raising funds from a particular source where the president determines that it is advantageous to waive or reduce the retainage in order to secure such funds. And be it resolved that effective upon the adoption of this resolution and the approval of the president, the fund will implement an administrative fee on contributions received constituting program funds from each donor at a standard fee of 8% to serve the same purpose as retainage and to be used in accordance with section 3.4A. Resolved that the board delegates to the fund's executive director / president the discretion to vary or waive the administrative fee set forth in this resolution based on factors including but not limited to the scale and duration of the program as defined in section 2.2 of the contract, the level of the fund's direct management activity in the program, and or consideration of the particular emergency / relief effort the contribution would support. With that said, I'd like to open the floor for discussion, questions, comments on this resolution.
Well, why don't you give us, Marcella, a little bit of a background?
Sure.
You know, kind of most philanthropic organizations charge an administrative fee and what that's based on,
Yep.
kind of what's market, why you're introducing a change, what that change would really represent, and what you're trying to do.
Sure. So, as mentioned, funds, foundations, it's very standard to have an administrative fee, which reflects the work that goes into administering, providing fiscal oversight, programmatic oversight, and management of program funds, grants. The Mayor's Fund has a particular role in that we are managing a range of agency partners and office partners on the public side and a range of donors on the private side. The administrative fee is critical to not just the growth, but being able to sustain the Mayor's Fund, because that administrative fee goes into our operating dollars to pay for personnel, to pay for OTPS, for the maintenance of the fund itself as an organization. We are currently limited, as mentioned, by the city contract to a cap of 8% administrative fee. Currently, our administrative fee is on a tiered scale, and it ranges anywhere from 2% to 7% at the largest fee. That does not enable us to do our work in any way that's sustainable. Right now, we have a team of 10 on the Mayor's Fund staff. That's to support over 60 agencies and offices and a range of collaborations. We want to be innovative, right? We have to be thought partners. We're managing relationships with a range of donors, and we're looking to make sure that we have a sound financial picture and a diverse set of revenue to sustain the fund. So having an administrative fee that is reasonable and I think in parity with the work that's being done is critical. The percentages range across foundations. I've seen it anywhere up to 20%. I think the average is somewhere between 12 to 15.
I was gonna say,
Mhm.
it's about 15.
Yeah. Again, based on the contract, the furthest we could move now is 8%.
Mm-hmm.
Our city contract is gonna be renewed. That is something that would need to be up for discussion, as would all the terms in that contract. What else do I wanna share about this? I think that's all I need to share about this right now, but I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
Would love to hear just kind of your thoughts.
Sure, so the current, thank you for that,
Mhm.
because I learned from that. The current policy, the current practice allows the fund to charge between 2 and 8%, but it's 2 and 7%.
Mhm.
But it's keyed to the dollar value, I guess?
The dollar value
And
of the contribution.
does it allow you to vary that within that scale, or is it, because there is some discretion?
There is some discretion
baked in.
written in, but the policy states, and it's a tiered scale,
Mhm.
you might have it committed to memory, but the larger the contribution, the lower the administrative fee. So I
Uh-huh.
believe over 5 million is 2%, between 2 and,
Over 500,000, it's 5%.
Up until $499,999 is 7%.
500
Up
and
until 500 to 2 million is 5%.
Correct.
Anything above 2 million is 2%, and someone made a special deal with one funder. that
Right,
it's.
so anything above 5 million is 2%.
Now,
Yeah.
why is that? I mean,
That's
I'm just-
counterintuitive.
Right.
Before I got here.
Okay.
It was a decision, it's documented in a memo from one of the previous executive directors.
Right. So I think
Standing policy.
we wanna understand kind of what the current fee is and why, and then kind of what's the, kind of the business case for a change going forward. Did you have other questions, Bill?
No, I was trying to understand what the current policy was, which I know, the current practice, and then what, I guess the next question is, what more, would this give you the same discretion as is set forth in 304 of the contract with the city, or would this give you new bases for discretion to
So
waive the fee?
this would not give us new discretion to waive the fee because we're still functioning under the terms of the city
Mhm.
contract. So any discretion that's allowed would be in reference to this. What it is allowing for is for us to go up to the cap that's
Mhm.
outlined for the retainage and
Mhm.
that's outlined in the city contract.
And do you think that we would pretty much always go up to 8%, or?
Yes, as a standard fee. What I would like to propose is having a standard fee of 8% because that's the current limit,
Mhm.
and to remove the use of a scale. And what I would like to do, because I don't need to hold any surprises, in the next meeting, once this city contract is revised, is to include in that negotiation an increase beyond the 8% for the administrative fee cap, if there has to be one included in the city contract at all, and then come back before this board for another vote to increase the administrative fee further, so it's something that's sustainable and realistic to the operating costs of the fund.
Stella, I'm sorry. In the spirit of transparency, so how would your usage of those funds then be reported back to this body?
The budget.
Oh, yeah, in the budget,
Budget,
yeah,
okay.
so it'll show up in the budget. What it would do is just increase the amount we have for operating funds, which
Got
means
it.
we can hire more program staff, so we can work better with our agency and office partners. It would mean we could hire more development staff, so we can engage more donors. Yeah, it would all go towards personnel.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we should get some more information, kind of some background memo, like what the proposal is and some more detail. Because I think right now, the city, when you look at the budget for the marriage fund, the city puts in a certain amount, and then
Mhm.
the rest of it are from these fees.
Mhm.
So this might, reduce, the city's contribution, probably not, but as you said, more grow
Yeah.
to expand, to have more, and have the city not to, have less of a contribution to pay
Right.
personnel and other things.
Point of clarification, it's an administrative fee to the fund,
Yeah.
but it's not an administrative fee to the donor. So if I understand this correctly, that's my clarification.
Mhm.
That the donor makes their contribution, and then from that contribution, the administrative fee is reduced. All right, I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes it is in addition
Mhm.
to.
Right, and so what that would look like, just for an
Mhm.
example, and I'll include this when we discuss it again. We typically will have a project proposal, initiative proposal that's submitted to a donor. In the budget, the administrative fee will be included, and so the total ask will be inclusive of the administrative fee as well as all the program asks that would go directly into the account for whoever the public partner is.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right. And then we just need to make sure that it's competitive and that, we understand what other philanthropic organizations are taking for administrative costs.
Yes.
So, at our next meeting, we'll walk through that, but just to kind of give people a sense.
Okay. Okay, we will now have a presentation of the FY '22 financial audit of the Mayor's Fund. Please refer to
Are you
page
gonna
8.
sit there?
Yeah, Brett is gonna come and join the table.
There's a seat right there.
Come on up, Brett, that's actually, Brett, can you sit on this side?
Absolutely.
Our treasurer, Mir Bashar, is double booked at the moment.
Oh.
So he's gonna be coming in
Oh,
here.
we don't have the treasurer. Okay.
He's gonna be
Okay.
coming in here to join this meeting
Okay.
any moment now.
All right, okay.
But we will,
Around now.
yeah, around now, so we'll go ahead and get started. We want to welcome Brett Jensen, from EFPR Group, our auditing firm, and he'll walk the board through the results of the audited FY '22 financial statements. And again, that starts on page 8 of your handout.
Okay, thank you very much. As you just said, I'm Brent Jensen. I'm the audit partner in charge of the audit for the Mayor's Fund. This was our firm's first year doing this audit, transitioning over from RSM, having done the prior audits. Overall, I just want to make a couple comments. I think it went pretty well. There's a couple minor hiccups. There's a material weakness in here that does continue. It's related to really revenue recognition policies, and it's just a matter of cash versus accrual basis items that we gave a little bit of assistance on. And as long as we're giving that assistance, that would exist. But overall, the audit or the accounting team did a great job getting us the information so we could do an audit. It's just a matter of us providing some adjustment assistance in that one area. So in the presentation, your engagement team included myself, Doug Zimmerman, who is our managing partner of our government and nonprofit audit team, and John Jenick, who is the engagement supervisor and works directly with Jill throughout the audit process. In terms of the timeline, we started the audit in mid-November. We actually gave this draft financial statement out in mid-January, and we're here today, and we'll finalize this audit upon your approval today. The manager representation letter has been provided already. Once we receive the completed letter back, we can finalize this, probably have it to you as early as tomorrow. Now, the statement of financial position. You have total assets of $17.5 million this year in comparison to $28.5 million last year, while your liabilities are down from $10.6 million to $2.2. Overall, that left you with a net position of about $15.3 million. And if you look at some of the normal indicators, we can get into some slides that are here a little bit later, but things like a current ratio that talk about the financial strength of an organization, you're above 7. It's a very strong current ratio. Overall, the financial health really looks good. There are a couple concerning things, though, within your financial health that are worth talking about, and I think correlate right back to the discussion we were just having about an administrative fee as well. If you look down at the bottom of your net position, you can see that only $330,000 out of more than $15 million is unrestricted. And that ties right back into that discussion where you have a lot of money that you are managing here. You can see you have assets north of $17 million. A lot of that is cash investments that you're managing for a lot of restricted purposes. The list of them is a full page long in the financial statements. And you really have kind of a shoestring budget in terms of the unrestricted side for that. So I think that that pretty well demonstrates exactly the point you were just making. The one other point I do want to make, you do have investments of about $11 million in here. That entire investment amount is in a single mutual fund that is bond-based. That does give you substantial interest rate risk, and we did see the impact of that in this past year. You have significant loss as we get to the next page. That, to the best of my knowledge, that has not changed as of this time, Jill, and I know that the fund has continued to lose a little bit more value since year end. It's not a material drop necessarily, but it is a continued loss. And as long as
Where's that loss? I'm sorry.
So right now you have $11 million in a bond fund. So as interest rates will rise, that bond fund will continue to fall in value. So the value of that bond fund has continued to deteriorate slightly since the 6/30 year end.
Could we, just a quick question if it's okay?
Yeah.
Could we do like a 2-year treasury fund? Would that?
So
would that help
I
offset
think
the reduction in value in the?
I can give you some guidance maybe, but I can't necessarily tell you exactly what to do.
Okay.
But I would say putting the money in the bond-based mutual fund takes additional risk on from your perspective. If you're holding the underlying investments rather than a fund, you always have the option to hold them to maturity if they start to lose value, so that you're not actually losing value, you're only losing time value of money, which is generally considered more acceptable. As soon as you put it in a mutual fund, it's not that different than any other equity type investment, and you have substantial risk of loss.
But I think to your point, Bill, we need an investment strategy, because that's a lot of money to just be sitting in a bond. But do we have an investment advisor?
We have an advisor, but it needs to meet with, the board to make any movement.
Right.
We don't have the authority to do it in the office, it has to be proposed.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, if we can have some recommendations, who is the advisor?
It's with Alliance Bernstein.
Okay, great,
James
yeah,
Sargent.
can we have them give us some options, because we don't wanna
Sure.
feel like we're sitting.
Thank you. So,
We'll probably wanna do a follow-up meeting sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so the Finance and Audit Committee would need to have a meeting and have Alliance Bernstein come and present some options.
Yep,
so the next page there talks about the financial results. Those are a lot of the things I just talked about. It does give you a little bit more year-over-year comparison, but I'm not gonna rehash. I'm gonna go on to the statement of activities. And in the statement of activities, you can see you have the operating revenue of about 18.8 million. Once again, to make the point about an administrative fee we were just talking about, only about 570,000 of that is unrestricted, can be used for any purpose. That really just covers your management in general on here. Your total expenses are down from the 28.2 million last year to about 20.7 million this year, which means that your operating losses come down from about 10.3 million down to about 1.9 million. Some of that has to do with the way revenue recognition works in terms of the criteria. It's not necessarily a reflection that you are that much better this year versus last year, but it is a good sign. It's a good trend overall still. And then a little bit more concerning thing that I was just talking about on the prior page is this net investment loss, where you have that $1.6 million loss. That is because of the money that having been in that bond fund and having assumed that interest rate risk.
right.
So,
That would have certainly increased our unrestricted.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that certainly was part of what hurt your unrestricted balance this year as well, where it came down 1.4 million. That was in there. So that's really driving a lot of that loss of unrestricted. So your overall change in that position was about $2.6 million loss. And was really driven by the fact that your program services do exceed your actual revenue coming in by a small amount, along with, as we talked about, the investment loss. So going on to the first graph page on financial results. This talks about the current ratio. As I was saying, your current ratio looks great. You're in excess of 7. Even a 1-to-1 current ratio is considered financially healthy. But that doesn't look at the restricted versus unrestricted picture. That's just the big picture, how much cash you have versus the current outflow of liabilities like accounts payable, accrued expenses. So while you have an overall strong financial health, you do have that unrestricted versus restricted gap still. The next page here on financial results, I think once again this kind of demonstrates the point that the fund is heavily involved in program, maybe to the detriment of management and general expense. You have about 96% this year, and you've been consistently above 95% going into program service of your expenses. That's an extremely strong number in comparison to other similar organizations. As you can see here, we talk about a benchmark for a lot of organizations being at least 75%. So that is great from the perspective of you're extremely program focused, but it, once again, can act to the detriment of the financial health of the organization. And then the next page on financial results shows the net position trend. The reality of your net position trend is that a lot of this tracks what's happening in the financial markets, because so much of it is driven by that money that's sitting in the investments, and along with what's happening with some of the revenue recognition criteria around some of those program dollars. But you can see that it dropped off. That 10 million last year continues to drop off a little bit. You're really right about back to where you were a few years ago, prior to having had a good year that was, I think market-driven, most likely.
And could you just touch on, I mean, I don't know, is everyone familiar with the revenue recognition for, I know you are, Lorraine, but for philanthropic organizations?
So.
If you get a 3-year, $10 million grant, you recognize all the revenue in like year 1. You don't get
So
part of
there,
it.
that is normal for nonprofits. You're in a little bit different situation here because you are a GASB following entity because you are a component unit of the city.
Say that again? We're a what?
Yes.
So GASB is Government Accounting Standards Board.
Okay, so yes, so.
When you are governmental in nature, so you're what's considered a component unit of the city. You are part of the city's financial apparatus here.
Okay.
So by being part of that, you have to follow the government accounting standards. So those revenue recognition criteria are actually a little bit different.
Okay.
They do tie, in some cases, a little bit more to matching revenue and expense, but it's not perfect still. There is some of what you're talking about still where certain types of transactions will recognize revenue in advance of expense because of the way the criteria are written.
Okay.
But it's not quite as stark as it is
As
in
it is
some
normal
nonprofits.
Okay, that's good to know.
So,
Is this 2020 bump due to COVID?
No.
I would imagine so, COVID relief fund.
Yeah.
yeah. So the next couple pages here take you through what's in our financial statement. I'm not going to read that off to you guys, but we'll get to this federal awards page here. We did issue, as well as our financial audit here, what's considered a single audit. It's a compliance audit of federal funds. You have one federal compliance program to be audited. It is the AmeriCorps grant that passes through the organization. So we did that audit. There were no compliance findings in relation to the federal program. So the next few pages detail out our various opinions. You do have an unmodified or clean opinion. As I mentioned, you do have the one material weakness, which is a finding in the back of the report. But otherwise, your opinions are clean in relation to both the financial audit and the single audit.
So what page?
24?
20, sorry, I don't have your page
Oh,
number.
sorry, yeah.
So we're on to, at this point, the graph on federal expenditures. The reality is you guys are largely operating a single program year over year, so this is just a matter of what AmeriCorps is passing through.
We're on
over
page
5 years.
23. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So, going forward again to the report to the board. Along with our financial statement, we will issue a second document. It's largely a boilerplate document as a required disclosures to the board from us. And this just details a couple of the major disclosures that are there. First of all, there were no significant new accounting policies that were adopted during the current year. Performance of any financial statement does require a certain amount of estimation. We take a look at those estimates to determine that they seem reasonable. There was no issue with any reasonableness of the estimates that we saw. There were no difficulties ultimately in performing the audit. As I mentioned, we had adjustments that were really just a matter of us assisting the team in certain areas throughout the audit. In terms of other items, as I mentioned, we will be getting the manager representation letter. I think that will be coming later today, it sounds like. And then once we've filed this audit with you and with the city, we will also be filing the Form 990 and the Char 500 charities filing with the state, as well as the federal single audit goes to a federal audit clearinghouse website. Are there any questions at this time?
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So do we need to move to?
Yes. Move to approve the audit.
Is that in here as a resolution?
I don't know.
It is not in here as a resolution.
But it should be.
Yes.
Can we
So-
just
Can we
verbally
do a
vote?
Yes, we
speaking
can.
motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can we,
Do the bylaws allow us to do a verbal?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, can we just do a speaking motion now and then
Would you like to
set
offer
forth
that
the,
motion?
well, I'd like someone to tell, what,
Yeah, what shall it say?
a little guidance on the parameters.
I don't have the bylaws with me. I
Well, we
guess you
can
can
say
just do a
pursuant to
verbal
the
and then we can do
bylaws.
an
Yeah.
email
Yeah.
version later.
Are we accepting the audit report or?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I need you guys to accept it and agree to it, so that I can make it final.
What else do you need in the resolution?
That's it.
Okay. So pursuant to the bylaws, details to be filled in a written resolution, I move that the board agree to accept the audit report.
So, second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.
So motion carries. Thank you. We will circulate that in writing later today. Okay. We are going to move on to the executive director's report. Oh, thank you so much. So the executive director's report begins on page 69 of your board packet. And I'll just highlight a few sections and take any questions. So we'll begin with staff updates. Since I joined as executive director in September 2022, the Mayor's Fund has made several new hires to fill critical roles. Shannon Allen has been hired as the Senior Programs and Policy Associate. She started in January 2023. Janelle Bazil Charles was hired as Programs and Policy Associate. She also started in January. And Dominique Laura Pierce started just a couple weeks ago, or last week, in March 2023 as Director of Strategic Partnerships and Fundraising. And an updated organizational chart and bios for each new team member can be found starting on page 73 in your packet. Moving on to our Board of Advisors, on February 23rd, 2023 at Gracie Mansion, the Mayor's Fund Board of Advisors held its first convening to take place during the Adams administration. The Board of Advisors, as well as select Business Leadership Council members, were invited to attend the convening, as were all of you, and you did, which was wonderful. Mayor Adams and First Deputy Mayor Wright provided powerful examples of administrative initiatives. The Board of Advisors Chair Rob Spire and I emphasized the impactful legacy of the Mayor's Fund Board of Advisors as an essential partner to the success of public-private partnerships in the city, and asked that members of the Board of Advisors financially support the growth and sustainability of the fund at a meaningful level annually. The event was a success, and we are continuing to engage with advisors individually and follow up to make sure that they're engaged and to assess their giving commitments. As for programmatic updates, this report highlights just a few of the ongoing and emerging partnerships and projects. As you all are aware, the Mayor's Fund collaborates with a range of city agencies and offices, and some of the new and emerging partnerships include, some of the new and emerging partners include the Mayor's Office of Sports, Wellness, and Recreation, which is a newly created office, the Mayor's Office of Urban Agriculture, which is also a newly created office, and NYC Aging, which is in development. And I just want to say a little bit more about that. So since December of 2022, the Mayor's Fund team have been in conversation with Aging in New York Fund and NYC Aging leadership about the planned dissolution of the Aging in New York Fund. Mayor's Fund is preparing for the integration of existing Aging Fund partnerships, programming, and financial assets and liabilities into the Mayor's Fund portfolio. The Aging Fund is in the process of executing a dissolution plan after obtaining an official resolution from their board. The integration process is planned to take place over the next several months. And I'll just pause for a couple of questions before we go into some other programmatic updates. Questions or comments? No? Okay. So in January 2023, the Mayor's Fund officially launched the Asylum Seeker Relief Fund with the goal of raising $25 million via partnerships with philanthropic organizations, corporations, and individual donors. The Asylum Seeker Relief Fund has three critical legs. The first is meeting immediate survival needs. The second is addressing medium-term needs, such as providing critical information and legal support related to knowing knowing your rights, asylum claims, and work permits. And the third is a longer-term integration strategy that leverages the unique talents and situations of new arrivals to New York City to meet critical New York City workforce needs across sectors. As of March 8th, 2023, the Mayor's Fund has made substantial progress on the immediate needs leg, for which $3.7 million has been raised in in-kind and monetary contributions in support of food, clothing, transportation, community-based direct services, and other areas of need. Continued efforts are underway to engage philanthropic partners and solicit contributions to the fund. And I'll just pause after each update to check for questions or comments before we move on to the next programmatic section. Any questions about the Asylum Seeker Relief Fund? Okay, moving forward. In 2021, the Mayor's Fund to advance New York City in partnership with the Office of Mayor Eric Adams and the City of New York raised money to support victims of the Twin Parks fire through a public appeal called the Bronx Fire Relief Fund. Bronx Fire Relief Fund raised approximately $4.5 million. The Mayor's Fund continues to work with BronxWorks, the contracted vendor, to support the provision of direct relief services to clients, including 176 households of over 400 individuals. Direct services are scheduled to cease by the end of this month, March 2023, based on the contract. As such, BronxWorks has created a referral network to facilitate continuity of services for interested families. Any questions or comments on the Bronx Fire Relief Fund? Okay.
Is there,
Yes.
is there like a sunset for this relief fund?
So fundraising has ended, and we are completing, through our partnership with BronxWorks, the distribution of all the raised funds, and they all go to direct support for the families that were impacted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the direct services portion of the contract ends in March. The full contract ends in May.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, on to the New York City Soccer Initiative. Upon the completion of the New York City Soccer Initiative's 50th pitch in 2021, and for those who don't know, like I didn't until I started working here, a pitch is what a soccer field is called. I did not know that. The partners, the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City, Etihad Airways, Adidas, and which I think is called Adidas, and the U.S. Soccer Foundation thought about ways their surplus funds could be used to support New York City youth. So there was the surplus from the original project to build the 50 pitches, and the partners, we came together with our partners to determine what to do with that surplus, which led to the creation of the Community Cup, which is a celebratory 5-on-5 tournament for elementary to middle school youth, representing all 5 boroughs, competing on the initiative's blue mini pitches. So the first Community Cup was held in March 2022 with 154 youth representing 25 communities, and 13 young leaders were hired to serve as coaches and mentors. I'm very excited about the next Community Cup because I will be able to go, and that is going to take place in early June. Another project of the soccer initiative is the Consulate Cup, which launched last fall. The Consulate Cup had 16 participating consulates, which helped raise $15,000 through their participation fees, and those participation fees go to fund the Community Cup. So the next Consulate Cup is scheduled to take place this October, and again, it'll have the similar goal of raising funds to support the Community Cup. Any soccer-related questions?
Any
Irfan
soccer
is our
players?
resident.
Yeah.
Are you guys the resident?
I hope you play because this is like your baby.
I play basketball, but yeah.
I never even asked you that question. I just assumed that like you're a big soccer player.
Now I am, I guess.
So finally, there's an emerging, really exciting project which is focused on universal basic income. The Mayor's Fund has partnered with Chief Engagement Officer, Human Resources Administration, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity to contract with Mocafy, which is a fintech company that specializes in UBI programs, or Universal Basic Income programs. Mocafy will develop a comprehensive implementation plan that will consist of thorough research and data collection across various stakeholders in order to create concrete steps for the city to adopt the innovative policy reducing program. And of course, you all can read more about all of these in the complete executive director's report in your packet. Before we move on to new business, are there any questions?
So Mocafy's product is gonna be like a blueprint?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I don't know that it's being called a blueprint, but it will be a plan.
a plan.
Yes. Blueprints are very specific things in this administration, so I don't want to call it a blueprint.
Right, good point.
Any other questions? Thoughts, comments? Okay. We are right on time. So I'd like to open the meeting to our directors to discuss any new business or items for discussion that you may have. Okay. Then I will now ask for a motion to close the meeting of the Board of Directors. May I have a motion to close the meeting? Second? All in favor?
Yes,
Is anyone opposed? Great. Meeting is adjourned.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
That